I'm your host, Ariel Willow. Welcome to Ghost Tea Podcast, a podcast for those who seek magic. Hello, ghosties. Welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about intuition, instinct, and anxiety, and hopefully have some helpful tips to help you tell the difference between them for yourself. As always, I want to remind you that this is my own take on things based on my own experiences and my own beliefs and practice. And it is okay if you don't agree with them, but I'm just sharing what I've found in my personal practice with others, so hopefully it can help you in your own practice. And before we officially get into it, if you are looking to book a session with me, you can do so via the Ghost Tea Podcast website and going down all the way to the bottom of the page where you can find the link to my website, or you can find the direct link to my website in the description. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. To start off, let's go over the definition of instinct, intuition, and anxiety. So with instinct, this is, quote, an innate, typically fixed pattern of behavior in animals in response to certain stimuli. But it also can be a, quote, a way of behaving, thinking, or feeling that is not learned. Okay, so this is just naturally something that you know to do. An example of instincts that exist across pretty much all species is migration, hibernation, eating, drinking, and sleeping. Those are all considered instincts. Now let's go into the definition of intuition. So intuition is, quote, the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning, end quote. Another definition says, quote, a thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning. Some people also call intuition a gut feeling or when you just know something. An example that's given of the difference between instinct and intuition is, quote, instinct is a primal survival mechanism ingrained in various organisms, primarily serving as a warning against danger. So, for example, an instinct would be to protect yourself against a weapon that's being thrown at you. In contrast, intuition, a hallmark of human cognition, serves as a guiding light that steers us towards future opportunities rather than present threats. So an example of intuition within the same scenario of protecting yourself from a weapon, it could be that maybe you have a gut instinct or a feeling that someone is going to reach for a weapon or something is going to be thrown towards you or try to harm you. Maybe it comes through in a feeling, maybe it's a thought that passes through your head out of nowhere, or maybe it is a vision or something like that. Now, the definition of anxiety is, quote, feelings of fear, dread, and uneasiness that may occur as a reaction to stress. So although it is absolutely normal for humans to experience fear or dread or uneasiness at certain points, anxiety, in contrast, is a continuation of that, even if there isn't a present threat or a particular thing that we can be identifying that's causing it. As someone who deals with anxiety myself, it has been a struggle in my life to be able to tell the difference between when I am experiencing anxiety and when I'm experiencing intuition, because anxiety for me, when it comes through, is trying very, very hard to convince me that it knows what's going to happen, right? For example, anxiety has come through for me sometimes with like, this person is in danger and you need to check up on them, because it's just this feeling that I get that like, oh my gosh, someone's in danger, or I need to check up on this person or something like that. And, you know, we can have intuitive impulses that signal towards danger, that, you know, we check in on someone and then it turns out they actually are in danger, but it can also be anxiety. So one thing that I've noticed with myself when I've looked back at situations where it did end up being only anxiety and not necessarily intuition is that with intuition or messages coming through from spirit or however you want to describe it, to me, it's something where I can't find a root for it, right? Like, as much as I try, I can't find a root for my intuition. Whereas I do feel like I can with my anxiety. So we'll go back to the example of like feeling like someone's in danger, right? So having a sense that someone is in danger and you need to be, calling them or getting in touch or something like that to protect them, that can, like in that example for myself, I could trace that back of, well, maybe there's been a situation in the past where I have felt that way and someone has been in danger, right? Or, maybe because maybe there was an intuitive response prior, but then now it's an anxiety response that is creating that scenario. Or it could be from a really real scenario. So let's say that you get in a car accident and your family gets hurt. And so whenever your family goes out driving with or without you, then you're worried, oh my gosh, they're going to get hurt, right? That can be traced back to an experience that that anxiety stems from. So it's not always the case for everybody, but I've noticed, at least for me, I've noticed that my anxiety usually has a root or a stem that I can follow to where it originates from. Whereas with my intuition, I don't really feel like I can do that. Oftentimes, when I have intuition come forward, it's in a way where it's very sudden, it's out of the blue, or whatever kind of phrasing you want to use to say that it just happens. And it doesn't really have a clear or logical reasoning behind it. There is a lot of debate around whether or not intuition is an actual thing or psychic ability is a real thing, because a lot of people believe that what intuition is just a cognitive ability to very quickly deduct logic reasoning. So, for example, you would meet someone and they'd be talking and kind of introducing themselves, and you mention, oh, well, you lost a friend early on in your life, right? And that could be seen as a situation where you are picking up on something intuitively, but then someone can also use the reasoning, well, when you saw them talking about certain things in their lives, they had micro expressions that then indicated towards some sort of loss early on in their life, like things like that. So there are people who will debate this till the cows come home and even past then, right? But like, there are situations where it just can't quite be explained. And this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing readings and stuff without seeing someone's face, because for me, it takes that worry, that anxiety that I could possibly be picking up on something through micro expressions or, the sound in someone's voice or something like that, that would lead me to an answer that I didn't previously have. So when I'm talking to clients and I'm working with them in situations where we're developing their abilities, right? One of the things that I have them do is sit with an item, and typically it's like a card deck or something like that, like an oracle deck or a tarot deck, and pick a card from the deck and not look at it, and then sit with it and see what you're getting from it. Write down what you're getting about it. Whether it's, sounds or phrases or images or feelings that are coming up, and sitting with that and writing it down, and then turning over the card and seeing how accurate it is. Because in those situations, you're not at all able to be influenced by any kind of mannerisms or voice inflections or anything like that. You're simply sitting with the energy of something and reading the energy in the way that you can through your clair abilities or your intuition in general, rather than the cues that your brain is picking up on. All right, so I want to get into some tips that I have to help you start identifying when it is your instincts slash intuition, or when it is anxiety or worry or something that isn't quite intuitively based. I'm going to give the disclaimer right here that no psychic is 100% correct all of the time. Nobody with intuition is 100% correct all of the time. I think as far as I know, the most well-documented psychic was only 60% accurate. So keep that in mind when you're going through any kind of exercises or any kind of things where you're not getting it right all the time. just know that nobody's going to get it right all of the time. And if they are, then they're probably lying. We are human, we make mistakes, we are fallible, and that is not something that we have a workaround for, okay? So, although someone can be very, very accurate most of the time, which is awesome if that's the case, nobody is going to be 100% accurate all of the time. So, right off the bat, I want you to try to take that anxiety that you have about getting it correct every single time, kind of try to put it on the back burner if you can, okay? Because that is something that is only going to get in your way of connecting with your intuition and your instincts and things like that, okay? Now, like I said before, utilizing the card decks, so sitting with a card and kind of going through and seeing what comes forward for you is a technique that I really highly recommend because one, it helps you to tune in a quiet space where you're not really being distracted by other things, or you're really able to get into your zone. You're able to take your time, okay? I do think this is important for people who are just starting out or people who find it difficult to really understand the difference between those intuitive impulses and that anxiety, because I do think it's important to have a solid idea or plan of action or pathway or gateway, whatever you want to call it, pattern that you follow when you are tuning in. And this can kind of be a grounding technique if you want to call it that, or you can just say that it's something that helps just ground you in the moment. Whatever it is, I want you to have some sort of technique or some sort of pattern or things that you can rely on that help you to be in a space, whether that is a headspace or a physical space, that helps you to feel grounded and centered and connected. For some people, this is going to be utilizing plants like marijuana. For other people, it will be utilizing a certain kind of incense or a certain kind of oil being diffused in the room, or a certain scented candle, or it might just be sitting with meditation music, or sitting with rock music, or sitting in their, special space, whether that is a closet that they feel really comfortable in, or a meditation room, or, whatever it is. As long as you are not putting yourself in an unsafe situation like driving a car or something like that, please don't try to do this kind of stuff while you're driving a car, because that can be really dangerous. If you feel like that is the space where you get the most accurate information, do it to where you're recording your drive in a voice memo on your phone so you can listen back to it later. You're not trying to take notes on a notepad or anything like that, okay? So just, if you are going to do that, which I don't recommend because safety, then try to do it as safely as possible, okay? But ultimately, just find things in your life, whether it is multiple things, spaces, situations, right, that make you feel most comfortable, most relaxed, and or most connected. And then when you are in that space, then do that exercise where you are tuning into things. And I do encourage you to do it both ways, of doing it where you are utilizing that space or that situation or that kind of, sense and patterns and things like that to tune in to the card or the item or whatever it is that you are tuning into, and take notes of, like, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're tasting, what you're hearing, things like that. Write those down on a piece of paper or take note of them, and then explore it and see if it matches, right? If it's a card, turn it over to see how much that would apply both in the metaphoric and literal sense. But then I also want you to try that outside of your comfort zone and see what the difference in results is. Do you feel like you're more accurate when you're not grounded? Do you feel like you're more accurate when you are grounded? Do you feel like you're more accurate when you have a certain scent going, or when you've called in deities, or when you have just stumbled out of bed and you're half awake, right? Figure out in what scenarios your intuition seems to be most accurate. so that you can feel a little bit more confident in your intuitive ability. But I also want you to take note of situations where you feel that you're getting an intuitive impulse or an intuitive message or intuitive insight. And I want you to document that, whether it's writing it down or, putting it on a note app on your phone or taking a voice memo of it, however you want to document that, and then explore it, right? So maybe randomly at work, you get this feeling of like, oh my gosh, this person in my family, I need to contact them. And maybe it's a feeling of excitement, or maybe it's a feeling of worry that you have that comes along with that sudden realization that you should get in touch with this person. Then after you get in touch with this person, then I want you to go back to your notes and see if you can find a route to it, right? Do you have past experiences that would have brought you to that reaction or that conclusion, or did it really just come out of the blue and you don't really have any way to make sense of it? But I also want you to pay attention to how you feel, okay? For me personally, which this might be different for you, so this is why I want you to pay attention to how your body feels on a physical level, how you feel mentally, things like that. Obviously, take stock of what's going on in your life too. So if you have a lot of stressful things going on, it can be more likely that you are to experience anxiety moments, right? So that's something to keep in mind as well. But pay attention to how your body feels. For me personally, when I have something come through intuitively, it's not always a feeling in my body in a physical way. It's simply a knowing. It's more what I would consider like mind-based, because there's not really a physical feeling that's attached to it. Whereas anxiety tends to come with a physical feeling. I'll either feel somewhat panicked, or my body will be tense, or maybe I'll be sweating, or maybe I'll be shaking, or maybe I'll feel like that sense of adrenaline rush, right? That comes with anxiety sometimes. I'll have some sort of physical response. And there are times that I will get intuitive information coming through that I will have a body response to. So for example, sometimes I will tune in to someone's loved one who has passed away, and that past loved one will be giving me information or a sensation in my body that would help me to identify different ways that they may have passed, right? So maybe I'll get a headache and I'll ask if they passed from an aneurysm, right? Or maybe I'll get tightness in my chest and, kind of link it to, okay, did they pass from something impacting them in the chest? Did they pass from not being able to breathe, right? Things like that. But in my opinion, for me anyway, it's easier for me to tell when it's intuitively based, because I will have the intuitive response first and then the body response. Whereas with anxiety, it's usually a body response first and then my mind catches up to it, or the body response and the mind response happen at the same time. I will be the first to admit that this isn't always a foolproof way of figuring out whether something is intuition or anxiety. So it's a learning process, right? We're all learning together. And sometimes it's easier to tell than other times, right? Like you'll be in a space in your life where it's just going to be easier to tell whether or not it's intuition or anxiety. And then other times it's going to be really hard because maybe you're going through a time where you're having a lot of anxiety. So just be aware that external factors and situations and experiences that you're having in your life can be contributing or make it more difficult or easier to be able to tell sometimes. So like I said prior, try to approach these exercises and kind of learning this about yourself with a lot of patience and understanding. You're not going to get it right all the time, but that is okay. You're not supposed to. You don't need to be getting it right all the time, okay? So I think it's just important to keep yourself open, keep yourself in a space where you are allowing yourself to really give yourself the opportunity and the best chance to really get to know your body, to get to know yourself. This is one reason why I think it's so important to understand yourself and your body, both on a physical level and a mental level and an emotional level, in order to know where your intuition is coming from the very get-go. A book that I really like to recommend to people, because it does kind of go over starting your practice and connecting your practice from yourself first, is Psychic Witch by Auryn. It's a really good book that helps really center a practice around getting started with knowing yourself, knowing how your intuition comes through, knowing how it feels to ground yourself, knowing how it feels for you to connect with spirit. Because your practice, your intuition, your abilities, however you want to call it, or whatever it is that you're working on, is going to ultimately stem from you. So understanding yourself, whether that is through therapy, which I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I do currently see a therapist consistently. So I am a huge advocate for that if you have the ability to, be doing it or seeing someone. But if you don't, or if you have and you haven't found it helpful, at the very least, give yourself opportunity to get to know your body on a deeper level, whether that is through consistent practice in stretching. Some people would call this yoga. It's obviously taken out of context culturally, so I won't get into that, but stretching on a regular basis, Pilates, working out, weightlifting, walking, even taking walks, really paying attention to how your body feels when your feet are hitting the ground, right? Or going for a run. How does your body feel when your heart rate is raised? How does it feel when it's really relaxed? How does your body feel when you're stretching muscles? How does it feel when you are lifting heavy weights, right? Just feeling your body and getting familiar with your body in a very physical way and understanding the physical responses that our body has to things can make a huge difference in how we're able to tell and connect to our intuition and our intuitive responses and our anxiety responses. And of course, I do want to mention, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a mental health professional. I've never been trained in any of these things. I have seen many therapists throughout my life and have friends who are therapists and psychologists and stuff like that, but I'm definitely not an expert. So obviously apply this advice and these tips within a space that feels healthy or safe for you and isn't putting you in a threatening space, whether that is physically or mentally. But regardless, I hope this helps you. I hope this brings you some clarity and ideas on how to connect to your intuition on a deeper level. And I will hopefully see you all very soon. If you have anything that you would like to see me go over on the podcast as a topic, please leave it in the comments below. I'd be happy to put it in my ideas list for future episodes. And I will talk to you all at the end of August. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being a listener, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.